Hello and welcome to Wordsmith Writing Coaches. We're going to do our second in our live. This is our second broadcast in our live stream series with Mike Rumley Wells. When my friend Mike needed to learn about traditional publishing, I gave him the best book on the subject. It's Jody Rein and Mike Larsen's classic, How to Write a Book Proposal. Most aspiring writers love this book. But Mike did not love this book. In fact, before he'd gotten very far at all, he wanted to hurl it across the room in disgust and anger. And I understood why. So before you watch this live stream, I want you to get yourself a copy of How to Read a Book Proposal and read the introduction. Read the first chapter, the first few pages at least. Are you feeling okay? Just, maybe a little intimidated or confused, perhaps. Maybe you're feeling intrigued and inspired. Great. If that's the case, don't bother watching this. Just keep reading that book and learn how the publishing industry works and what you'll need to do to wisely pursue traditional publication. But if, like Mike, you find yourself wincing or rolling your eyes, you feel like a visceral revulsion rise up in you, but still you really want to see your work published by a regular publishing house, tune in. We can help you. Subscribe to this channel. This might be just what you need. So, in this live stream series, Mike and I are going to talk through each part of how to read a book from the perspective of persons who've become disillusioned with a materialistic or transactional paradigm for life, and people who've fallen in love with a holistic relational paradigm instead. So we're not necessarily going to go through in a nitpicky sort of way and hit every single issue, but we're going to go more or less chapter by chapter. Well, we're probably going to skip a few chapters. We're going to hit the key triggers. We're going to talk about the things that really trigger Mike and talk through those things. So here's Mike now. Hey, Mike, I'm
Hi,
glad.
Nick. Thanks for
So
having
glad
me.
to. Oh, it's my pleasure. Without you, this wouldn't even happen. So we talked kind of about the book in general last time, but I'd like to start. I keep looking down because I have the book right here,
Yes, you do.
um,
Um,
and I like
One thing
writing
for the
in books.
audience, really quickly, if Nick says how to read a book, he means how to write a book
Oh,
proposal.
I'm sorry.
So
Did I say
don't
how to read?
you did, but don't go scrambling to your bookshelf because that's also a great book and also a classic. I never hurled that book. I really like it, but
Good.
that's a different book.
It's a very different book.
Very
And actually one of the reasons why I will sometimes accidentally say how to read a book is because that's actually the book that I think about and talk about
different.
the most.
Hmm.
Um, which is interesting because like I'm really glad, Mike, that you had a problem with this book because I admit I had just fallen into the I had just fallen into sort of the corporate language
Yes.
that Jody uses in this
Hmm.
book.
Hmm.
And I've just, over the years, I've just learned to like automatically translate that and think to myself, well, what she really means is this other thing. And so what used to bother me years ago when I first started out as a writing coach and went from academia into actually helping authors, you know, try to publish wisely. Um, I back then it really bothered me. A lot of things about marketing really, really bothered me, and um, I needed mentors like Russell Nolte and others that I met through the Mount Herman Writers Conference, to help me understand these things, to help me translate things.
Yes.
So I'm really glad that I can help translate this stuff afresh for you. And I'm glad that we're doing it publicly so that other people can benefit from it.
Yeah. I have
So,
to say a quick thing on translation because that rings a bell, and I think this will be helpful um, image for you. So we lived in Nicaragua for 7 years, and I am an old dog, and I was an old dog when I moved there. And old dogs, as you know, have difficulty with new tricks. Um, and I was poor at Spanish, and I would say I am now unembarrassedly poor at Spanish, which means I lost the concern over being self-conscious how bad my Spanish is. And it freed me up absolutely to be able to communicate, because they're incredibly gracious. Watching my son, who was 4 when we moved, watching him learn the language, which, I was standing still and he was racing. But what was fascinating is when I was translating, I was, okay, here's the box full of words, and here's the word that I just heard. Now I move that to the English box and rummage around to find the word that would match up with that word, get my brain to link it up, and then go back to try to say what I need to say. And for Corin, my son, it was water. You understand? Like, it all just flowed together like liquid. There was no taking things in and out of boxes. There was no rummaging around. It just flowed together, right? Like,
Yeah.
this water and that water, and you can't see the difference. As
Mm-hmm.
soon as you pour them together, they flow.
Yeah. Yeah.
So once again, in the publishing world, I am at the beginning of language learning, and I have very strong reactions. How to Write a Book Proposal is obviously a spectacular book. It's so well written. It's so thorough. It's exhaustive and exhausting, and I hate it. Nick was nice saying that he doesn't like it very much. I hate it. And in personal promotion, they use a quote from Jack Canfield that says, "Writing is 10%, marketing is 90%." And that captures everything I hate about this book.
Yeah, I actually disagree, but
if I wanted to be a marketer, right? If I felt called to be a marketer, then that would make sense. That would be 90% of my time. I feel called to be a writer.
Yeah.
And so so this is what's wonderful. Nick immediately says he disagrees, and now he's going to explain to me how it isn't really that.
Yeah.
So the image I'm giving you is Nick is helping me rummage around in my box, and eventually, like with Nick, it will be water for me, because what you're saying is it's water for you, right? When you hear those, you translate in your mind instantly, so much so that you don't even hesitate. The language is just switched, and you know what it means in your life with your values, right? Whereas I'm still rummaging around the box and cursing.
Yes. Well, so let me talk about Jack Canfield's quote for a moment there, because Jack Canfield, and it's ironic actually, because I'm not sure what kind of publishing Jack Canfield had in mind, but it's ironic here because you don't want to be caught up in, like, you don't want to learn how to be an expert marketer. Like, that's not, you just want to be able to write, which, by the way, is exactly why you're seeking traditional publication. Because one of the great things about being traditionally published is that you can focus much more on your writing. And, of course, there's going to be certain things, which we'll get to in a second, which Canfield would call marketing, but which you and I call, I'm just being a normal human being who has relationships and forms associations, with other humans, right?
Right.
But he calls that marketing because he's unable to. He has a certain ulterior motive in mind, and he's thinking in a certain profit-based paradigm.
Yes.
But we don't have to think in that profit-based paradigm. As a matter of fact, even a profit-based paradigm is interesting because, like, so much of what I have read and listened to about marketing in the past 15 years, and it's especially from people like Russell Nolte, for example, has been speaking within the marketing paradigm and using corporate sorts of language, but trying to say it's not about the money. It has to not be about the money. And the way that Russell Nolte, for example, will say it is, it's not about finding customers. It's about building a rabid fan base.
Mhm.
And so even then, it sounds like fan base, like that
Right.
sounds like a corporate word, right?
Right.
And maybe it is. Um, but um, but when Russell Nolte says, you know, the best way to market your book is to build a rabid fan base, and then you take his course or you read his book about that, he's absolutely talking about being a human
Mhm.
and building actual relationships with other human beings, and and you know, offering something that is as valuable and helpful as you can possibly make it, and find out who will like discover what you've made and say, oh my gosh, that's awesome, that is so valuable to me. um, I don't just want to um, agree to pay a certain price for it. And it's not just a transactional thing for me. Oh, like, you know, I need a box of pencils. Here's a box of pencils for $5. Take my $5. I'll take the box of pencils. And if I never see you again, neither of us will actually even notice
Right.
that we never see each other again. That's the kind of cold commercial transactionalism
Yeah.
that I'm talking about.
Mhm.
And and that is the language of marketing has come out of that world. It's come out of that paradigm. And when you're not familiar with that paradigm and you hear these words and you hear how they describe things, like Jack Canfield saying, oh yeah, being a successful writer is 10% writing and 90% marketing, and you think to yourself, holy cow, he only spends 10%. Really, Jack? You really only like the words that you write, that's only 10% of what's important to you
Right.
about writing? Is that
Yeah.
true,
Is
Jack?
that 10% of your energy? Is that
Is that
10% of
exactly
your
10
time? Is that
10% of your
10% of your
time?
heart? Right?
Exactly, right. And um, if that's true, Mr. Canfield, I'm very sad for you.
Yes.
Like that's not the life. I don't think that's a healthy human life.
Mhm.
Um, but I'm not sure that's true about Jack, and I can explain why in a second. Um, but um, the other thing is when Jack Canfield says, it's 90% marketing. Um, I am trying to find something valuable in what he says, and
Mhm.
so there, if Jack Canfield is trapped in that cold sort of transactional corporate
Yeah.
capitalism, if he's trapped in that mindset, then I'm sad. But you know, I'm looking for something that will help me.
Yeah.
And so in order for Jack and his insights to be helpful to me, I need to be able to translate them into a more human, um, idealistic um, uh, framework. So, and I happen to know, from Russell Nolte and others that um, that the best, most effective marketing is actually, relationship building relationships and forming associations and um, winning winning people over to a noble ideal that I would be delighted, to do that for free. Like, it's so important. No one needs to pay me for this. Uh, I'm going to devote my life to it anyway. But if I want to actually spend, and talk about that 90%, 10% thing again. If I want to actually spend a significant portion of my life, like literally my clock time, my time while I am awake and conscious and functioning as a human, right?
Right.
If I want to spend a significant portion of that time um, um, giving, winning people over and and helping them to find answers for the problems that they're struggling with, helping them to find hope, helping them to cope with the things that are going on in their lives, um, helping them to see things in a way that helps them to make wise choices that 30 years from now, they and their descendants will rejoice in those choices rather than regret them. And if I want to spend a significant amount of my time working towards that goal, I just need to find a way for that time that I spend to support itself, to
Yeah.
support me
Yeah.
somehow,
Yeah.
so that because I have, bills to pay. There's a very pragmatic side here where
Yeah.
I have certain, financial goals, which are not evil or bad. They're practical. They're in the context of my family, and the
Yeah.
more generative I am, the more generous I'm able to be.
Yes.
And being
Yeah.
generous is important to me.
That's a value.
Um,
Yes.
yeah, so I'm going to be earning money somehow.
Right.
So it would be the best of all possible worlds if my generating uh, profound value for other people and me generating an income that I can use to pay my bills and reach my financial goals, if those two things could align somehow, that would be awesome.
Yes.
So, um, so when you start thinking about it that way, maybe Jack's right.
Hmm.
If what Jack means by marketing is um, trying to expand my influence, trying to reach people, trying to convince people that the Jack Canfield way of looking at life, chicken soup for the soul, right?
Right.
That's what
Yes.
he's most famous for.
Yes.
Hey, and
Don't
chicken
sweat the
soup for
little stuff. Yes.
well, okay. It's actually my least favorite quote. I hate don't sweat the little stuff. I actually make a living sweating the little stuff for other people who don't
Right.
want to sweat the little
Sweat the little
stuff.
stuff. Yeah.
Said every CPA in
And
existence, by the way.
right. And you employ someone who sweats the littler stuff that you don't want to have to sweat.
Exactly. Happy to pay my administrator every dollar she charges me for doing the paperwork that will kill me.
Yes.
Like it kills my soul to
Hmm.
do
Right.
tax paperwork and
Right.
stuff. And it's no big deal for her.
Mhm.
She does it 10 times faster than I do. She does it much better than I do. It actually like gets done on time, and I mean, take my money. And this is exactly what I'm talking about. Like
Yes.
if if we can if we can create something so valuable for other people that they're like, "Oh my gosh, like the money doesn't even matter. Here, take my money. Just give me more of
Yes.
what you're saying. Like this is so helpful to me. I can't even tell you." Like that's um so the problem comes when the marketing world sees that itself as a goal,
Yes.
whereas you and I see that as a step towards a goal. Like it's the human on the other side of that enthusiasm who is important to us.
Right.
Is not the enthusiasm,
Right.
but a marketing person from a coldly and if you're a marketing person out there, I don't mean to cast aspersions on you. I'm talking about the 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 overall the cold economic capitalistic paradigm that most marketing language flows from. Um, like in that paradigm, unfortunately, there's a strong undertow trying to pull you away from the fact that humans are central and that people is what really matters in this world, and trying to pull your attention off of that and to say, look at this enthusiasm. Like we can capitalize on this enthusiasm. We can cash in on this enthusiasm.
Right.
We can make some money with this enthusiasm. Let's generate more of that. And as soon as the person on the other side of that enthusiasm becomes less important than the enthusiasm itself,
Right.
we're in deep trouble,
Yeah.
deep, deep spiritual trouble. Um, and you and I know this. I'm kind of saying this for the people who are watching.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Anyway,
And
sorry,
another
like, yeah,
well, I guess, and this is our discussion of uh marketing as relationship building and valuing people rather than marketing as, for lack of a better word, greed is good, and using people to achieve another end, right? And that's
Exactly.
and that's of course what gives me the willies. And what I always think of is the multi-level marketing, right?
Hmm.
And people who are willing to use the capital, right? Everyone has a certain amount of capital in relationships with others, and they're willing to spend that capital to use people to make more money. And
For
they might,
selfish ends.
for selfish
Hmm.
ends, and they might say that differently, right? But if I have a certain amount of trust with someone, um, I don't want to spend that trust recruiting them to be a layer in my MLM so that I can make money off them, right? And sure, eventually they might realize that they're the one getting scammed and they might hate me, but hey, I made money, right?
Hmm.
And it's a little bit of a stereotype, but in that picture, and I've certainly seen people do this, right? In that
Yeah.
picture, you exchanged the trust and relationship you had to make money, right?
Ouch.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so again, it's not that that's the only thing marketing is, but that's the thing that I won't do as a marketer,
Right.
right?
Good.
And if I'm not valuing the people and spending the capital I have with people to build trust and to hopefully love and empower them, then
Exactly.
I don't want any part of how marketing
Hmm.
might work.
Right. Right.
Speaking on
So
that,
how would you rephrase that then? So
well, that's a great
pop
question. No, no,
pop
I
quiz,
can
Mike.
I can hop with that.
So using people for
Okay,
selfish
so
ends.
Anne Lamott comes out with a book. I love Anne Lamott. Love her. I don't think, is Anne trying to get my money? And I don't think, oh, I don't know about this transaction. That might not be worth my 21, right? I'm like, take my money. How quickly can I pre-order? Is there a way to jump the line? And will I get a chance to hear Anne Lamott speak so that she can sign my book? Right? And the reason for that is I feel in this, crazy community of writers and readers, I feel connected to Anne Lamott. Like she speaks to my soul. When I was in my darkest time, I could read Anne Lamott, and that was honestly, I would describe it as praying by proxy. Like I could pray through her words, even though I physically myself couldn't pray. That's pretty high praise for a
Yeah.
writer. Like, may I be that for someone, and I will feel like my job on earth is done. Right? And
Yeah.
that sounds like I'm exaggerating, and I do want to still keep loving my kids. But
S-
right,
yeah.
that's the writer you'd hope to be. Okay, that's the
So
language of,
okay.
hey, Anne needs to reach readers in order for that to happen, right?
True.
But the connection isn't, oh my gosh, how much, ka-ching can she make? It's, we all tell one another when the next Anne Lamott book's coming out
Right.
because
Yeah.
we connect through that.
I love
So,
Anne Lamott.
so it's a language of connection, a language of, you know, building up and even blessing, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Rather than bilking.
Rather than
Blessing
bilking,
rather than
very nice.
bilking.
Blessing rather than bilking. Let's trademark that, and make money off
I'll let you do that.
it.
Yeah, by the way, a trademark as opposed to a copyright, a trademark is created when you make money off of something. Isn't that
Oh,
interesting?
fascinating.
That's
That
how you create
is
a trade. You
interesting.
you create a copyright by creating a final product,
Uh-huh.
but you create a trademark by monetizing that. Isn't that
Oh,
interesting?
wow. That is very
Anyway,
interesting and fits
trivia
well.
trivia tip for the day.
Fits well in our conversation. Um, yeah, so I would say, as I'm trying to, learn to get the right word out of the right box to make sense of this for myself, what I hope to do is write in such a way that people feel connected, people feel loved, people respond by saying, oh my gosh, I thought I was the only one who felt that way. And maybe I'm not quite as alone as it seemed. And when I close the book, I'll feel a little less isolated, a little more understood, a little more known, which is a wild thing for a book to do.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But I believe that because
it's
I've
a powerful
experienced that.
magic.
Right. It is
Yeah.
a powerful magic, right? Yeah, Stephen King talks about, writing is magical, right? It time travels. it tessers.
And space travels.
And space travels. It tessers, right?
Yeah.
It
And
closes
it
time.
mind travels.
And it mind travels.
The amazing thing about fiction is it helps us, it gives us it enables us to see life through a different person's eyes.
Yes.
And
Yeah. And it
that's
invites us
magic.
into a world that we don't get to visit otherwise.
Yes.
And we get to enter in. I always tell people one of my favorite authors is Chaim Potok, right?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
I would know nothing about that world. But through his novels, I feel like, wow, I have gotten to get a glimpse, to get a taste of Hasidic Judaism that I would never have otherwise. And just have a love for what looked to me like meaningless rituals. And I read these books and I think they love Holy Scripture more than I do.
Yeah.
And I am humbled and corrected.
Yeah.
Even chastised because I was judging a world that I knew nothing about, and when being invited in absolutely changed my picture of that. That's magical.
Yeah,
right?
it is.
Like,
It is.
he banged that out on a typewriter and I picked it up at a used bookstore and then was transported into the world of Hasidic Judaism. And, if you haven't read My Name is Asher Lev, you must.
Okay.
Right?
I actually haven't. I should read that one.
That's a you must from my perspective. So, okay. So
well,
I can wax eloquently.
We'll put it in the notes. What's the name of that book again?
My name is Asher, and I always butcher pronunciations, but it's Lev. So Lev or Lev. I think Lev. My name is Asher Lev.
Yep.
Kim would quickly say that her favorite is Davita's harp. So that's her favorite. And you
I'm more
know
familiar
the
with
author.
that one. Yeah.
What?
I'm more familiar with. So I've read Chaim Potok's essays.
Okay.
He's an excellent essayist.
Yes.
But anyway,
to me, he's a novelist.
Oh, he is. Absolutely, he's a novelist. Right. He's known more as a novelist than as an essayist.
Yes, but he is a great essayist.
Oh, yeah. So kind of circling back to the idea of translating, right? And using people for selfish ends.
Yeah.
Like this, the other way of the other subtext that we should, I think, read into this kind of marketing language is serving people for higher ends.
Nice.
Serving people for noble ends.
Yes.
For higher motives.
Yeah.
And earning money from that is helpful because it fuels and turbocharges that ability to serve people for noble ends.
Right.
And so anyway,
even as the way you were describing it before, the difference becomes I can do this as a vocation versus I can only do this as a hobby, or at best as a volunteer that I squeeze in my off hours, right? And it's very different how much you can offer when you do that, right?
True.
So again, trying to think through the paradigm of, okay, so what does that mean? As you were describing with the meet the financial goals, it's also when I can do this in such a way that I can earn a living, that frees me to really do it. Right?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. And I know of the many aspiring writers listening to our live stream, um, most would love to be able to say, okay, this is my full-time gig,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
If that's what they love and that's what they want to offer, they want to really be able to do that to the
Oh,
full extent that their hearts desire.
yeah. Yeah.
So
Or at least earn enough income from their writing that that it gives you freedom to choose
yes,
how you spend the rest of your time.
yes.
I
Hmm.
was talking with an author a couple of months ago who's also a speech pathologist,
Hmm.
and she loves working as a speech pathologist.
Yes,
But it would be even better if she could earn enough money from her writing that she can spend a significant amount of time writing. Right now, she writes on her spare time, and there's not much of it
yes.
because she's a young speech pathologist who's really struggling to,
Hmm.
to make it in that
Right.
world,
Yes.
to make it financially in that world.
Right.
She's doing fine
Hmm.
as far as her clients are concerned.
Yes.
Her clients love her. She's very effective as a
Hmm.
speech pathologist, from what
Right.
she was saying
Hmm.
in our interview. But but, you know, as far as like, making ends meet, she has to work a lot of hours as a
Yes.
speech pathologist.
Hmm.
And it would just be great if she made enough money from her writing so that she, you know, didn't have to work so many hours as a speech pathologist that it makes her that she dwindles as a human, because
Right.
that makes her less effective as a speech pathologist,
Yes.
makes her
Yes.
less effective as a writer, makes her less effective as a spouse, as a,
Hmm.
just as a person in relationships with other people.
Yeah.
You're a walking zombie, of, you're a shell of what you otherwise could be.
Right.
um, so it's actually a noble goal for
Hmm.
her, not a selfish. We need to find language where we can talk about self-care and selfish
Hmm.
as distinct things. This is
Yes.
one of the problems with the English language, because
Yeah.
other languages actually don't have a problem with this distinction,
Hmm.
where there's a greedy, um, negative individualistic selfishness,
Hmm.
and then on the other hand, there's a wise, humble
Yeah.
understanding of your own human limitations,
Yes.
saying,
Hmm.
oh boy, if I don't take care of myself this
Hmm.
way, I am going to not function well in any of the other spheres of my life.
Yes.
And it's, like, I wish that the English language more naturally distinguished between these two things.
Hmm.
But since it doesn't, this is part of learning to translate.
Yes.
And
Right. Exactly. And part of being able to express a paradigm that feels life-giving, right? Because I would
mhm,
even say that, selfishness isn't good self-care, right?
this is
It's
true.
it's selfishness is self-destructive, right?
This
If
is true.
if we are, you know, by design and, by how we work best, interconnected beings, right?
Mhm.
And we grow and heal as we love others, then really being committed to selfishness, right? Far from
Yeah.
being in our best interest is self-destructive.
Yeah.
Um, and good self-care is understanding that balance,
Mhm.
right?
So one term that you will hear in sort of the corporate world
Hmm.
is enlightened self-interest.
Interesting.
I see this as an entirely positive term.
Okay.
Like, this is a term that has emerged in the corporate world, and you'll see this in, you'll hear people like Jack Canfield
Hmm.
or Jody Rein. Well, not Jody Rein. Um, but it's like what you're describing is the kind of individualism, the kind of erosive individualism that de Tocqueville talked about when
Yes.
he talked about
Yes.
when you read Alexis de Tocqueville,
Hmm.
and he's looking at American democracy and trying to figure it out. And he's like, it's the weirdest thing because, this intense individualism in the United States of America, back then when he was analyzing it,
Right.
probably still today. But de Tocqueville said, in Europe, this kind of individualism would be death. It would be horrible for the individuals involved, and it would be horrible for the society. Things would just fall apart.
Yeah.
But in America, they make it work because they're really into associations. Americans are joiners, and they form groups and communities and associations and societies constantly, and everyone belongs to half a dozen of them at least. I mean, I'm paraphrasing to Tocqueville, but and that was how he saw, like, that was one of the paradoxes that he saw. And so we'll see the same kind of paradox in marketing, because in marketing, on the one hand, they're constantly, like, I hate the fact that the bottom line, whenever people talk about the bottom line in a corporate or microeconomic sense, the bottom line is always profit.
Right. That's what
The
you mean.
bottom line is never human thriving.
Yes.
But so for you and me, the bottom line is not profit. The bottom line is human thriving.
Right.
And so that's one of the things that, like, we can't. It's important for us to recognize, and for everybody watching this video to recognize, that there really are parts of this selfish, individual focused, profit focused paradigm that really are deeply unhealthy.
Yes.
And it's important to be aware of the things that are unhealthy.
Yes.
And to use more corporate lingo, right? People talk about wanting to climb that ladder of success.
Right.
You know what? Like, climbing a ladder of success of some kind, nothing wrong with that.
Right.
I don't even mind the metaphor. The problem is that so many people have their ladders leaned up against the wrong buildings.
Oh, interesting.
And then when they get to the top and they realize it's empty and deserted and there's nothing of value up there.
Right. Right.
Oh,
And it cost you
or
your
worse.
marriage and your relationship with your children
Well,
and
that's the
any
worst part.
community.
When you get to the top and you realize the whole building's on fire. Then you're really in trouble, right? And like,
Dang it.
this is not the building I
This
wanted to
was not the
climb. I wanted
building.
to.
And look at all the effort I went into getting up here. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I would
So
say, okay, so we've barely looked at any words in how to write a book, but all of this feels like groundwork
yeah.
to be able to translate well,
Yeah.
right? To be able
Yeah.
to discuss, okay, so with this set of values,
Yeah.
right? How do we approach what inarguably is a useful tool to help people succeed in this professional arena,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, exactly. I'm just looking at the book real quick because here in part one of the key questions that she talks about. Oh, yeah, this is a good one. I'm looking at her quiz on page 19, but the whole thing here, she's talking about, is your idea book worthy? And the way that she talked about it earlier was, nope, that's not it. Where's the part where she talks about it earlier? We're going to delete this part when we edit the video. Here we go.
Not the take our quiz. What do you got?
So earlier on page 3, the way she phrased it was, you'll also learn how to determine whether your concept is saleable. As if whether your concept is saleable or not is the litmus test for whether or not you ought to spend any time and energy further developing the book. Is it saleable?
Right.
And then in the quiz on page 19, she some of these are great. Have you studied the craft of writing? Is the very first one. Absolutely. That's a
right?
very good
If
question.
you're trying to
You
be a
know,
writer, then you should study your art.
right. And
Invest yourself in it.
the second one is very just plain and pragmatic.
Yes.
Are you committed to writing another book if this one doesn't work? Or even if it does work,
Or even if it does work.
work. I mean, and then
Right.
defining work
Yes.
is one
Defining
of the
work.
things
What
that
did
we
you mean?
may
Yes.
disagree about, right?
Yes.
But publishers generally aren't interested in one-hit wonders, and that's true for every publisher everywhere,
Yes.
whether they are, Christian in the CBA or whether they're in the ABA or wherever they are. If it's a publishing company, they really are looking for authors who are going to write more than one successful book,
Right.
um, depending on how the publisher defines successful. Which, and by the way, different publishers actually do define success in different ways.
Yes.
Not every publisher sees purely the bottom line of how profitable books are. It's very interesting.
Yes.
This is one reason why there are so many publishing houses in the world.
Hmm.
So anyway, he says, how did test marketing your idea as an article go? Oh boy, we may need to come back to that. But then this one is actually a really good question. Would you buy a book by you on this subject? This is one of those questions where it doesn't at all fall into sort of the corporatistic, sort of money grubbing side of things. This
Right.
is a good one.
Yes.
Um, would you buy a book? Would you buy this book that you want to write or that you
Right.
have written?
Right.
And and don't just be satisfied with a yes or no answer unless it's a solid yes or a solid no.
Right.
Then that's fine. Maybe you don't, there's no deeper insight for you to learn here. But the interesting thing is, like, you've created this book, or at
Yes.
least the book idea, and you already think it's great. But then when you turn it around on yourself and say, would I buy this book if it were finished the way that I'm hoping to finish it? And if there's any like yes but or no unless, explore that, because
Yes.
that's exactly the way that your book probably needs to improve.
Right. Yes.
Um,
Yes.
so
And also, tell me if I'm thinking of this wrong, but would you buy this book means, are you passionately interested in this thing, not just trying to, seek the utility of, I could make people buy this, right?
right. So
you know,
why would you buy this book?
yeah. I
Is
mean, to
is
me,
it
it's
is it
it's
a
a good,
shiny ooh
yeah,
ooh
right.
shiny?
Well, and it's a good litmus test for, do you care about this subject?
Right.
Right? And again, this may not be how Jody intended the question at all, but it's how I'm reading it, right?
I think she actually
Because
does intend it
I
this way. Yeah.
love books, right?
Yeah.
And very few times in my life do I go, is this book worth the money? Sometimes I think, will I get in trouble with my wife if I buy this book? So is it worth the relational points that the money will cost? But right. So when I hear would you buy the book that you want to write, it's like, does it stir something inside you that, that connection of, oh, this is something I want to know more, or this is something that would really help or speak into this part of my life, or this is a world I want to get to enter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And to
exactly.
me, it's like, if that's not what you're writing, I'm not sure why you're writing, and I'm
Oh,
concerned.
yeah. There, yeah. I'm not going to go into that now, but it's very interesting. For some people, that question is a real eye opener.
Yes.
But there's others. Is the help you provide easily found for free online? If so, people may not be willing to pay for it in book form. Okay, this is another topic. Well, okay, this is another topic that is really worth more discussion. Maybe we can get into it later.
Yeah.
But one of the reasons why people buy books is because they want this experience
Yes.
that we're having right now,
Hmm.
where you can dwell on a page and then flip back to another page and just keep your finger there. There's no like clicking the back arrow on your browser, which you can do. It's perfectly fine. I'm not a Luddite. I love my browser. I have several browsers that I use, but there is a different experience
Yes.
when you're reading a paper book. And the
Yes.
other thing is, so I'm not necessarily speaking to you directly, although maybe Mike, it's important for you to hear this also.
Mhm.
Like, in a world where you can Google anything and get an answer,
Mhm.
the value of a book is no longer the information in the book.
Yeah.
If it's a nonfiction book,
Right.
the value of the book is no longer the information it contains. The value is in how that information is curated.
Mhm.
So the new, like, fancy buzzword that I've been hearing is curation, information, because people can find, if someone just is like, oh my gosh, how do I, you know, how do I make my boiler work? It's got an F14 error. They just go to Google and Google, Munchkin boiler F14, and bam, you get the error codes. You scroll down and you can click on a YouTube video for how to replace the part that's burned out or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, you don't need a book for that. But um, you know, the problem is when you're dealing with a more sophisticated problem, like how to write a book proposal.
Yes.
It- People want this to be a thin book. People want how to write a book proposal to be, an article that they can read on Medium, and up at the top it says 7-minute read.
Right.
Like, that's what they want.
Yeah.
3-minute read. But that's not what it is.
Mhm.
Like, if you could get this in 3 minutes from an article, this would not be a classic book. The magic of curation is that in this many pages, I mean, how many pages is this really? In 330 pages, um, she's actually condensed a ton of information
Right.
and insight, and she has taken all that information and put it in relationship to one another and commented on it and said, this is more important than this. And here's the relationship between this whole chunk of information and this chunk of information.
Yeah.
Like, it's that kind of curation
Mhm.
that makes a book valuable these days. So it's curation of the content, not just the content itself, that makes books valuable.
Right.
And
Interesting.
so,
Yeah.
going
Yeah.
back to the question, is the help you provide easily found for free online? Not the way that you're not the way that you're delivering it. And
Right.
and that has to be true.
Mhm.
Like, if it's just a pile of articles, maybe it won't make a great book. You have to stitch those articles together
Right.
in a way that is helpful and
Yes.
tells a meta story and draws deeper connections in people's mind
Yeah.
on that topic.
And the book reading becomes an experience that is a very different experience than clicking around and getting distracted and dealing with pop-ups, and right. Like, I still
Exactly.
think of reading a book, even reading this book, as
hmm
an immersive, right? Like,
Well,
that I'm now in this world,
yeah,
right?
which is one reason why you had such a reaction against
It
it at
is.
first.
It is because I read books, I enter into them, right?
Yeah.
I am the classic blank slate reader, right? So, if the in a novel, even if the narrator is someone whose life is so completely different than mine, I'm them for that moment, right? And I have no trouble with that. Likewise, I am trying to be this person that they're writing to, and I think that's where it really, like, I was trying to immerse in, you know 6-figure, 7-figure, right, bestseller, this is how you, and yeah.
Yeah.
um so that this is where I need the translation, because this is an immersive experience. It was just a
Yeah.
very unpleasant immersive experience for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it does answer the question, like you said. No, this help is not easily found online. Um,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and well, anyway, it says, do you have a means to reach the market for your book? Okay, now here's where it starts. The triggers
Yes.
start going off,
Yes,
right? Like,
absolutely. These are
do you,
nuts and bolts of, are you a good
yeah,
marketer? Never mind how good of a writer you are.
yeah,
That's how that question comes across to me, right?
yeah, yeah.
If
Do you
not,
have the
don't count
means?
on many sales, she concludes. Which, go
And it
ahead.
stops at the sales.
Mhm.
Oh, don't count on very many sales.
Yeah,
Like, well, it's not sales. Like, I want to help people. I don't want to take their money.
right.
Because and that's like when Jody Rein says, "Well, don't count on very many sales." I am sure what she's thinking of is don't count on very many people um, discovering your book who also really need or want what your book is offering
Yes.
and who will know who you are and trust you enough as a person that they will want to part with any of their hard-earned money in
Right.
order to hear what you have to say.
Yes.
Like that's actually what she's saying.
Yeah.
The problem is she says, "Well, don't count on sales." And so it's easy to jump to, "Well, don't count on stuffing your pockets full of cash with this method."
Right.
You know, go, go sell, go do your multi-level marketing business. Like, oh no, like
Yeah.
that's not where we're trying to go with this.
Yeah.
Because the last thing that we want to do is make a person feel used. The last thing that we want to, and by the way, here's another thing that I've read as I was studying marketing. The number one thing, the number one reason why readers give a book a 1-star review.
Mhm.
Have you heard this?
No.
The number one reason why is because they felt tricked into
Mm.
buying the book.
Oh, wow.
Or another way of saying it, maybe they won't necessarily say they felt tricked, but the number one reason why people leave 1-star reviews is
Mhm.
because the marketing, the salesmanship for that book
Mhm.
promised them a certain thing, and they did not find that certain thing in the book.
Wow. So it felt like bait
And
and switch to them.
and they paid money for it.
Yes.
Because very,
Yes.
very few people, extremely few, okay, I'm going to hear it in the comments. There are exceptions, I know, but
Yes.
very few people will bother to leave a 1-star review or a 1 or 2-star review for a book that was free.
Mm.
If they got a
Mhm.
free copy for something,
Mhm.
it was free, right? They'll
Right.
start reading it. They'll
Then
be like, I don't really like this. Oh, it said it was going to tell me this, but I'm at like halfway through and then, this is garbage. And they just delete it
right.
and they go on with their lives and they forget about it because you didn't take their money.
Right.
But if you trick them, if
Mhm.
your slick salesmanship unfortunately works,
Yeah.
and they buy your book, they pay money for your book, and it does not deliver on whatever you promised them in order to get their money from them, then you've made them angry. That's when you
Yeah.
get a 1-star review.
Yes.
So,
Interesting.
so
Yeah.
yeah, so customers, marketers can make it about the bottom line all day long, and it's never true. Even the marketers know this, the
Mm.
good ones.
Mhm.
Even the marketers know that it's really about giving something valuable to the people who value it
Yes.
and doing it in such a way that the person who receives it always feels like they got a bargain.
Right.
Like
Right.
I am seriously considering paying $45 for a certain book. I have
Mhm.
not done it because this is one of those things that you were implying that it's not going to make Catherine happy.
Yep.
I'm not going to do it.
What's it
I
gonna
don't
cost you?
need the book right now. But there is a certain book, it's in my save for later thing,
Mhm.
queue, and, I would like to pay $45 for this book. I'm willing to do it, um, because I feel like, that book is going to give me more pleasure than keeping my $45 would give me.
Yes.
And, I could spend the $45 on something else. I could save the $45. I could invest the $45 in my own education or my children's education. There's a lot of things I could do with that $45. I could take my wife out for dinner. Okay, it would take a little more than $45. I live in Los Angeles, but still,
You
you
can take
know,
your wife to a burrito stand for dinner.
well, no, you could, I live in South LA. The burrito stands are pretty cheap here.
Okay,
We
so
could
that's
go to a burrito
3
stand for
dinners.
$6 with no trouble. But if I'm going to
9
take her
dinners.
out to a nice dinner, yeah, $45 that'll that'll you know that'll cover most of the dinner. But but my point is that I want to spend that $45 on something because I feel like it'll be worth more than that to me.
Yeah.
And it would be horrible if I spent $45 or if I spent $4 to buy a book and then felt like, oh my gosh, what a waste of my money.
Yeah. I got
Which
taken. I got taken.
I got taken. I got tricked. I
Yeah.
got cheated.
Uh-huh.
Someone swindled me out of this. They
Yeah.
promised me a certain thing, and
Mhm.
then they took my money, and where's the thing? I don't get it.
Yeah.
I'm not entertained by the story. There's no insight here for me to help me solve my problem or whatever it is that I was looking for. Exactly. So then the number one reason for one-star reviews
Mhm.
is when the salesmanship was successful
Mhm.
and you didn't actually give value to the human on the other side of that transaction.
Yeah.
The number one reason for negative reviews. And I don't even know if there is a number two reason.
It might be it.
Honestly, like it's
Right.
the number one it may be the only reason on the list. I would love
Right.
to have seen
Mhm.
what, if any, were the competitors for that number
Right.
one slot.
Right. Like
Honestly, I
personal
actually can't think of any.
personal animosity,
Oh yeah,
or,
that's right. That could be one.
I'm against your cause are the only
Yeah.
things I could think of.
Yeah, like
Um,
I met you at a writers conference and you were rude to me. So the next book
exactly.
that comes out, I'm going to
I would
write a
try to talk to
one-star
you and
review.
you just excuse yourself to go to the bathroom.
Right. Which,
Um,
by the way, is another human relationship issue, isn't it?
it is. It is.
Right?
No,
It's all
absolutely.
about relationships,
It
really.
is.
Anyway, sorry, carry
No,
on.
I was going to say on this same question, do you have a means to reach the market for your book, even if the publisher does nothing? So
Hmm.
again, trying to translate, a market for your book means, can you find and connect with the group of people, whether that's the subculture or the individuals who will see this as a great exchange and be happy with what they received in the exchange, right?
Exactly.
And so this is helping me. Okay, I'm not a ringer. I really did throw this book several times. I'm sorry, Jody. I'm sorry, Michael. Um, it's still in one piece, so that's what I can say
Oh,
about
good.
it.
Pretty
But
resilient book.
it's a pretty resilient. They printed it well. Um, but but that feels like a different thing, right?
Yes.
Um, because okay, as a writer, one of the things that I choose and pursue is, what what friends have dubbed reckless vulnerability. I try to be open, right? Because I realized people feel much more um, encouraged and loved and accepted when they realize, oh, you're kind of messed up like I am,
Yeah.
versus you have it so together that I will never be like you.
Yeah.
And then there's a whole conversation about grace and
Hmm.
how, we really convey that people can receive grace. And we believe that when we express, I have received grace, right?
Hmm.
When we say, well, you know what? I've never really needed it, but I'll bet you could have it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So when I read, do you have a means to reach the market for your book? I mean, do you have a way to reach the readers who will really benefit from the way you're going to express, this is how I've struggled, and this is how I've experienced grace through that struggle, and this is how people have come alongside me and loved me through shitty times,
Hmm.
and this is why I'm still standing. Right?
Yeah.
As I told
Exactly.
Nick, I have a literal standing desk. I am standing. Um,
Yay.
and and other people reach the moments where they're not sure they're going to keep standing, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I'm offering, right? Now that
Mhm.
sounds really different than can you hit your market and can you hit your sales quota, right? Like,
Yes,
can
it
I find the
does.
people who need that encouragement?
Yeah,
And will they feel like, okay, what I'm offering is of such value that they would like to pay to have this connection, this
yeah,
book, this magic,
yeah,
and look forward to getting the next one. You
yeah.
know, it's a beautiful thing in a writer's heart when you hear when's the next book coming out,
Oh, yes.
right?
Yes, it
Like
is. Yeah.
that is one of those songs to the soul right there.
Yay. That's
So
right.
yeah, but that takes some work to take this question and understand the framework of relationship in that,
Yeah.
right?
And honestly, I hope that markety people are will watch this video or some excerpt from it and and hear the ways that you and I are struggling through this and understand, okay, you know, when I am teaching about marketing to people, maybe maybe this is some other language I can use
Yeah.
that, you know, and maybe I shouldn't use all the shop talk and the technical terminology that I learned when I was getting a master's degree in marketing or
Right. Yeah.
wherever you've learned your marketing
Yeah.
chops. There's different ways. There's more human ways of talking about this stuff.
Yes.
And by the way, tangent, that's a lesson that attorneys and lawyers out there could also learn. And CPAs
Mhm.
and people who talk finances with people.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's always a challenge to to rephrase your expert jargon
Yes.
into something that
Yes.
the common person can understand easily.
Yes.
Um, and not just understand the data, the facts behind what you're saying, but also understand the intent and the context, um,
Yeah.
which is so important for any
Right.
data. The
Right.
intent, why is he telling me this? And what are we talking about? Like, what is the context here? Is the context, shameless greed, or is the context uh, trying to grow my positive influence in a broken world that definitely needs this positive influence? And if there are people in the broken world out there who are like, oh, that Mike Rumley Wells, pff, that's not my jam. Fine.
That's
We
okay.
don't even necessarily like we don't want to trouble them. We don't
Right.
want to annoy them with our ad campaign
Hmm.
that,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, like, can I just say, I don't know if there's any like citizen or resident of the United States of America who is ever going to buy an extended warranty on their car, right? I
Yes.
mean, have they not poisoned the
Yes.
entire I have vowed, like, after about the 3,000th spam phone call and text message on my phone,
Yep.
I like I just vowed, like, I will never willingly
Yes.
trade, exchange any of my money at any time in my
Mhm.
life for an extended vehicle warranty. Never. Because I never want to put cash in the pockets of these
Right.
people who have tormented me for
Right.
2 years. You
Yes.
know, like, what the
You
heck?
can't let them win.
No, I'm not going to let them win. No, because it's become a battle. I
Yes.
feel like I have lost a battle
Mhm.
and they're trying to beat me into submission. And by God, I am not going to let them win.
No.
And boy, when your marketing campaign does that to
Yeah.
you,
Yeah.
you've lost.
We can
You've
successfully say
lost
that
bad.
backfired on you. Yeah.
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 No. Someone thought it would be a great idea to
Mhm.
get the phone number of every single person in North America and text them all 3 times a day and phone call them 4 times a week
Right.
for 2 years.
With
And
the, well, sure, it's going to make some people upset, but there have to be enough people to respond to make it worth it. right?
Right.
And that
Because we
gets
don't
back
care about the people.
right.
We just want to earn the money.
We just
That's
want the money. We've
exactly
just
what that says
yes,
to us.
right. No, it's the percentage, it's the actuary said, okay, 90% of people are going to hate you, but if you can sell to 10%, you've made a fortune, right?
Exactly.
Or
Yeah.
98 and 2.
Yeah.
Yes. No, exactly. And that's right back to what I said about you have a certain amount of currency, a certain amount of coinage. Are you really willing to spend it that way?
Yeah. Especially when your balance can go negative.
Yes.
Because look at the memes and stuff, like
Right. That's what I was going to
an
say.
extended vehicle warranty, like Google extended vehicle warranty. You don't get like, at least
Right.
I don't get. I'm gonna Google it right now and see what I
Yeah,
get.
the responses are not gonna be about getting warranties, except for
No,
the ads on Google.
they're all
Everything
from
else will
Reddit.
be
Yeah,
memes and mockery and
exactly.
yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely,
I
and,
just wanna find out. I'm doing the
there'll
search
be
right now live on our broadcast.
it's
Oh my gosh.
happening in real time.
These people are spending a bajillion tons. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ads that appear right
Holy
away.
cow.
Although
How much must that
although
cost? Uh-huh.
the 5th ad is
Yeah.
extended car warranty, is it worth it from Credit Karma.
Oh.
So at least someone is asking a
Yeah,
question about worth.
maybe I'll pop that balloon, yeah.
5, okay, 6. 7, there are actually 7 ads here.
7
Just
ads.
the last
That's a
2 ads are
lot of money.
they're pretending not to be ads. Holy cow! And then these are also basically ads. They're using SEO to appear instead of paying,
Mhm.
Google AdWords for ad placement. Holy cow. I am amazed that the entire first page has come up
I've never seen
without
that.
a single there's not a single, um
Legit,
holy
if you
cow, but
will.
even the second page has 5 ads, paid ads. There are more paid ads on these placements. What the heck? Yeah, no, this is horrible.
That's the worst I've ever heard of.
Oh,
Wow.
here we go. That's not until the second page that I get to those robocalls about your car warranty, ignore them from the LA Times.
Thank
The
you, LA
extended
Times.
warranty is either non-existent or not worth the paper it's printed on, says the LA Times, September 21st of 2021.
There you
And
go.
then below that, 1, 2, 3 more
Oh
ads
my gosh,
for
really?
extended vehicle warranties.
Wow.
What the heck? I'm stunned. Like, guys, you're losing.
Okay.
You're not these people are they're shoveling advertising money.
Okay. So to
So sad.
bring this, right,
Such a
to
waste of money.
redeem that what might have seemed like a tangent,
Sorry.
right? No, no, but
Yes.
I'm saying let's bring this in, right?
Okay.
Why
Yeah.
do you hate marketing, Mike? That's why. That's why. Do you want to be 90% that and 10% a writer? Hell no.
No.
Right?
No.
Can I say
Not
that
at
more
all.
clearly? I can say it more loudly.
Hell
Um,
no. No.
I do
Yeah.
not. I do not. I do not want to be associated with them. That's what makes marketing, right, turn my stomach.
Yeah.
Is this and
When it's done badly.
when it's done badly, when it's done, like you said, not just impersonally, but like to use, right?
Yeah.
When you're
To
bombarded by
smother,
it,
to defeat. Yeah.
yes, yes, right? When it's just like, I'm going to beat you into submission, or again, this is the language we need. That feels like amoral, right?
Yeah.
Like I have no interest in values beneath this. I just want the Benjamins,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And as a writer who, John Gardner once wrote a book on, moral writing, right? Like as a writer who wants to be a moral writer, I want no part of that.
Yeah.
So even to understand how to be a writer that lives by my own values, I need to develop a paradigm of marketing, right?
Mhm.
That doesn't feel instantly like it's compromising my values,
Right.
right?
A paradigm of marketing. Here's the bottom line for me.
Yes.
Good marketing, marketing which is not which is effective, because we need it to be effective,
We need to be
especially if we're going to be
effective.
spending money and time on it.
Yes.
And
Again, we're trying to do a vocation.
right. So marketing that is effective and marketing that is morally responsible
Yes. There it
is
is.
is marketing that places the recipient in the center.
Yes.
The marketing that says, this person out there, there's a hypothetical person out there who, I mean, it's getting a little bit personal, Mike, but
Right.
who has recently lost a child. And, I know, Mike, you've written, I mean, literally written a book about dealing with the grief of losing a child. And, you know, let's put that person and that person's welfare, that person's value, let's put them in the center here and make them our focus. How can we serve them?
Yeah.
And one small part of serving them is when we get to that detail where we talk about what is the price that we're going to put on the book?
Right.
What's the retail price going to be? And, there's reasons why, good reasons, like morally neutral or good reasons why the the retail price is going to be higher than, the price at which you're probably going to expect to sell most of your books, discount price. But that has to be higher than the price that it costs you to get the book into their hands.
Right.
Otherwise, you know,
Otherwise,
it's
it can't be sustaining, right?
right,
Like
right.
I am as
It's not
close to an
self-sustainable.
idealist as you're going to find at a 53-year-old, but I get the fact that if I'm going to say I want this book to be free, A, no publisher's signing up for me,
True.
right? And
Yeah,
B, there's not going to be another book
right.
because there's no like way to financially sustain that practice.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly. Now,
yeah.
now, if, for example, if you are, let's say, purely hypothetically speaking here,
Mhm.
let's say you're Jack Canfield
Right.
and you've already, like, you are financially independent now. Like, you've earned enough money.
You've done
And
really well by yourself.
yes, and you've done very well by yourself, and you were smart enough or wise enough to have handled your money in such a way that you still have it,
Right.
and you
Right.
will still have it in the
Yes.
future.
Yes.
Like, money management very
Mhm.
much is a moral issue.
It is.
Um,
Absolutely.
and so once you get to that point, then yeah, you can give things away. You can say, I want this book, to be sold at cost,
Mhm.
just to get into the
Yep.
hands of as many people as possible. Or, and it goes back to why maybe it is a good idea to have a slightly higher retail price. Let's round up, to the nearest dollar or the
Okay.
nearest $5, and all the money, all the royalties that come in, let's give it away to charity.
Right.
Or all the money that comes in, let's disperse it as a year-end bonus
Hmm.
to all the employees of the publishing company who published my book.
There you go. Right. Right.
I mean, we can
Yes.
be creative here.
We can be
When we
creative.
are
Let's
generative, we can be generous.
absolutely. Let's give it to organizations that are providing outreach and support for bereaved parents,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Like
Exactly.
trying to help bereaved parents survive, keep their marriages alive, surviving
Yeah.
the right on.
Oh man,
Yes, on down the
marriages.
line, right?
Yeah.
On down the line. No,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. And so, kind of trying to pull that together. When I say the reader is the bottom line and not the dollar, right? I really mean, how can I find the reader who will need, that's a strong word, who will need this book? And in the case of my grief book, I have tried to write the book that I needed, right? The classic advice,
Yeah.
write the book that you needed at the time when there was no book like that. And that's what I tried to do. So when I think bottom line, yes, there is a part of this, which is you hope that it's sustaining, so that I can continue to offer
That's
other books.
only the bottom line of the sustainability part,
Precisely.
which is a small
Which is
part
a
of this
small
whole.
part.
It's an
Yes,
important part,
it is.
but
It is.
you're not writing the book for the dollars it will earn. You're
No.
writing the book for the people it will help.
Yes, right. So that is bottom line. Bottom line is, can you reach and help this group of people? Which, whether it's my book or not, I guarantee that group of people needs support and help.
Exactly.
100%.
Yeah.
Right. And I happen to know the figures because I had to research this, right? There are many of those, many more than you think there are. And there will be more today and more tomorrow, right?
Unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately, exactly. We're talking tragedy. So we're not talking about how do we, manipulate people suffering tragedy to make money off them. We're talking about how do we love people who are in a pretty desperate point of their life of needing help, of needing to be understood and supported, and really at a place of this.
What happened?
Are you not moving? There, Nick's moving again. And really, this is a terrible time in life to even be able to receive support. All right, Nick keeps. All right, Nick,
Sorry,
I'm fine.
I'm here. I'm good. Sorry about that.
It's fine. It's fine. When you go back and edit this, you have to keep that powerful moment without showing that Nick was looking alarmed. And yes, exactly.
Oh boy.
Oh.
Anyway, well, we should probably wrap things up because we've been going for more than an hour now.
We have,
but
and that was a good session.
But I feel good. I feel like we've covered part 1 in this book.
I do too.
So that's good. So our next time we're going to do part 2 for sure, and possibly part 3 at the same time, because part 2 and part 3 and part 4 actually, those are all very similar, I think, as far as the conversation that you and I are having.
Yeah.
Then part 5 is going to be interesting because there's a long discussion there.
Yes.
But yeah, part 6 and part 7 are also very similar, and I think we'll find Jody using more language that's more empathetic to you and me in part 6, but probably not in part 7, interestingly enough. Although I don't remember that part, but yeah, anyway, it'll be interesting. So for those of you who are watching, I hope you subscribe. And so, Mike, can we do this again next week, or is that too soon to jump in?
We'll do it again next week.
We'll do it again next week.
Yep, we'll be on part 2.
This was part 2. Oh yeah, we're going to be covering part 2. Yes,
that's what I'm saying.
Yep, part 2, 3, and 4 most likely.
Part 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah,
will be our goal for next time.
Awesome.
Yeah. So anyone who wants to discuss kind of this different paradigm of values, please respond, ask us questions, debate with us, help us understand better.
Yes. And the next one, we're actually going to talk about it before it happens. Like, I'll let people know that it's happening before we start.
Really
what a thought, right? Talk about marketing.
Exactly.
Oh, boy.
What a concept for marketing. All right. Thank you, Nick.
All right. Well, thanks, everybody. And thank you for joining us. Yay.
Yay.